Suspend disbelief for 2 hours and 10 minutes because Top Gun Maverick is all too far-fetched to be taken seriously, but it's so amazing, so spectacular, that it really doesn't matter. Add the superb image quality and wonderful all-enveloping sound into the mix, and you are in for a great time with this outstanding 4K UHD release. Yes, Top Gun Maverick, directed by Joseph Kosinski, is pretty sensational. It's not the first time that Kosinski has worked with Tom Cruise, because he also directed him in the great science fiction film Oblivion, and Top Gun Maverick looks so good in 4K compared to the Blu-ray that it's convinced me that I'm actually going to upgrade Oblivion into 4K too, because the difference between the Blu-ray and the 4K is like watching a video and watching a film, and to me that's what I want. I want to watch a film in a home, so this one comes pretty close. It's not exactly film, but my god, it looks like it at times. It had an estimated budget of $170 million, and it took almost $1.5 billion at the worldwide box office. But of course it may still be taking money as I speak, because it was still on general release up until quite recently, and might still be so in some parts of the world. It was shot using Sony Venice 6K cameras, and at least one of these was developed for Top Gun Maverick so that it could fit inside the cockpit and get those amazing views through the cockpit with the actor in the foreground, and those sensational shots were done using these tiny cameras, a bit more than a GoPro, a bit bigger than that, but they were designed to fit and they did a fabulous job. They were where we see the 1.90 to 1 sequences in this. The rest of it, the mainly dialogue sequences and the non-action scenes, are 2.40 to 1 approximately. And of the two, I thought the 2.40 to 1 did look slightly better, and the reason for that is, I've spoken about this film before, Le Mans 66, which was shot entirely on video, and it had a filmic look. I was convinced I was looking at film in places in that, and it's the same with Top Gun Maverick on these 2.40 to 1 shots. I'm even seeing film grain, so perhaps someone out there can fill me in on how they've done that. All I know is that it looks great. The director of photography was Claudio Miranda, I'm not quite sure of the pronunciation, and I expect we're going to be hearing a bit more of that name in the future. Awards season is coming up too, so I'll be surprised if his name doesn't appear there once or twice. Fujinon lenses were used, and I did receive an email from Visual Impact, who I get my cameras and equipment from, when this film was in the cinemas, and Fujinon apparently put a video up of the making of Top Gun Maverick, so I'll see if I can put a link to that in the description below, and also the shorter Visual Impact video, so you can have a look at it there. I think it's about 1.5 minutes into their video you get onto Top Gun Maverick. Really interesting minute or so about how the film was shot. And one giveaway there, I think they do actually show the sequence of Dark Star as it goes over. Ed Harris is waiting there to find out what Maverick is up to, and the plane takes off, the Dark Star takes off, whooshes overhead, about 2 feet overhead, and the roof comes off of this building that he's standing by. I thought that's a clever special effect. How did they do that? But it actually did happen as the jet they used flew overhead. So I think it was on take 20 that it finally works, but quite an amazing effect. Anyway, I digress. The Dark Star is a hypersonic scramjet where you know you're watching something that's science fiction and therefore special effects, but it's really carried off so well that it doesn't matter. And that's interesting about this film, because they did most of it practically. Now obviously they couldn't do a sort of a space plane practically. Well, thinking about it, Tom Cruise will no doubt be up in space soon if he gets the chance, so we'll see what happens there. But there was no way they could do that for this, so you know you're watching computer animation or special effects of some sort, but it really doesn't matter, because the rest of the film, apart from some animated explosions, things like that, it is so convincing that you're watching a film that they shot practically that you can't help getting enveloped in it and just having an overall great time. So it's a great sequel to the original 1986 film Top Gun, but I think it might actually be somewhat better than that original film. It's hard to say, but certainly the image quality on this does exceed that of the 1986 film, which was shot Super 35, and in my review of that I did say how amazed I was with the picture quality, because Super 35 had no business being as good as that. And really looking at it again for this review, it's the HDR that makes that one. It is a bit grainy in places, but very good image quality and highly recommended. There are a couple of interesting things on the end credits, one of which is the film is dedicated to Tony Scott, who was going to direct the sequel as he directed the original, but sadly he died during the planning stages, and so things were put back a few years, and indeed they were put back again when COVID-19 struck. And I have to say before I go on that I think Paramount, Tom Cruise and everyone involved have to be congratulated for holding this one back, because the success of this film may be enough to regenerate cinema after this pandemic. We'll have to wait and see, but surely going to be the biggest film in terms of box office take of 2022. The other interesting thing on the end credits was there's an IMAX credit, and I was surprised really, because it's a 1:90:1 for the action sequences, as I mentioned, and 2.40:1 for the rest of it. And whereas genuine IMAX that's shot on 1570 IMAX film has an aspect ratio of 1.40:1, this is not going to fill the full height of a genuine IMAX cinema, which is a bit of a shame really, but there are always compromises in filmmaking, and I dare say the video cameras being manufactured specifically for this release were not able to facilitate the full height of an IMAX screen. Bit of a shame, but I'm sure it looks spectacular on any big screen. And indeed in here, we're only sat about 11 feet from the screen, which I've got masked down to 9 feet wide. It was almost like watching it in an IMAX cinema in here from that distance, and it did look fantastic, as I've said. So it is easy to get overexcited with a new release like this when it comes out and it looks this good. And so the first thing I did once the 4K had finished was I went upstairs and I got the 4K of Tenet and put that on, and that immediately is perceptibly better than Top Gun Maverick. May not look that way on every system out there, but it certainly had a better filmic look overall, and the 1.90:1 shots in that, which were originally 1.40:1 for genuine IMAX theatres, the 1.90:1 shots in that did look markedly superior to the same ratio in Top Gun Maverick. So it's not going to be quite the best you've ever seen, but it really is up there. It's close, and it's probably the best movie shot on video that I've seen. Le Mans 66, I'd have to take another look at that, watch them almost side by side, but it really is that good. The sound is Dolby Atmos, and in here on my THX 5.1 sounded absolutely brilliant. Don't turn it up too loud, otherwise you might shake the house down or blow a few speakers. It's easy to overindulge with a volume channel on something that sounds this good. There are some great extras, and they're on the 4K disc as well as on the Blu-ray disc, but they do appear to be HD. There's no HDR on them, so not that it needs it anyway, but I thought I'd just point it out. But some great extras that show you how this film was made, and you'll be under no illusions about them doing it practically wherever they could once you've seen those extras. There's also a session with Tom Cruise at the Cannes Film Festival earlier this year, and he's just really interesting to listen to. He comes across as really personable. He always does when he shows up to premieres, and he goes around to meet the crowds and sign anything they put in front of him. Picks up people's phones if they say, "Speak to my mum," and things like that, and he'll say, "Hello, it's Tom Cruise here," and the people on the other end are screaming or don't believe it. So I think he's quite a good laugh, is Tom Cruise, and he comes across really well in this sequence in the extras at the Cannes Film Festival. I really would have liked to have got to the cinema to see this one, but I wanted to see it at a top cinema, so that meant getting into the West End of London or the BFI IMAX, and I just didn't have the time. I didn't want to risk going to a local or lesser cinema, and so I thought I'd wait for this 4K disc, and I'm really pleased that I did, because I think it's one of the best 4K discs we've had so far. This is the steelbook with the lenticular cover, which I just thought when I saw it, I'll have a look at that. It was quite expensive really. I think it was just short of £40 from HMV on their website. Pre-ordered it. Of course the post office didn't get it here anywhere near release date, but it doesn't really matter. It really is worth the asking price, and I do believe HMV as I speak still have copies of this, so it really is worth picking up. Now, one other film that I think I should recommend that has similarities is the 4K release of The Final Countdown. I have done a full review to this, so I'll leave a link in the description below. But I think The Final Countdown is where the cameras on the jets coming off the aircraft carriers first made an impact. So this is well worth looking at. It's another very good 4K disc. I don't think it's going to be looking as good as Top Gun Maverick, but it is very good and it's a nice purchase. Anyway, that brings us to the end, so if you like this video, please give it a like and perhaps consider subscribing so I'll carry on creating content like this in the future. Until the next video, bye bye for now.